गोपीजनवल्लभा गिरिवरधारी जय गोपीजनवल्लभा गिरिवरधारी यशोदनन्दन व्रज जनरञ्जना यशोदनन्दन व्रज जनरञ्जना यमुनातीरावनचारी यमुनातीरावनचारी जय राधमाधवा कुंज विहारी जय राधमाधवा कुंज विहारी जय गोपीजनवल्लभा गिरिवरधारी जय गोपीजनवल्लभा गिरिवरधारी यशोदनन्दन व्रज जनरञ्जना यशोदनन्दन व्रज जनरञ्जना यमुनातीरावनचारी यमुनातीरावनचारी जय राधमाधवा कुंज विहारी जय गोपीजनवल्लभा गिरिवरधारी यशोदनन्दन व्रज जनरञ्जना यमुनातीरावनचारी यमुनातीरावनचारी जय राधमाधवा कुंज विहारी जय राधमाधवा कुंज विहारी जय कृष्ण बलराम Krishna Balaram Jaya Krishna Balaram Jaya Gauranitai Jaya Gauranitai Gauranitai Jaya Gauranitai Jaya Jaya Prabhupada 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 Jai Vishnupada Paramahansa Parivrajakatarya Shtottara Satar Shri Srimad Divine Grace Ye Shri Bhakti Vedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Jai Vishnupada Paramahansa Parivrajakatarya Shtottara Satar Shri Srimad Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai Prem se kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Sivasati Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai Grantharaj Srimad-Bhagavatam Ki Jai Shri Shri Krishna Balaram Ki Jai Shri Shri Gaur Nitai Ki Jai Hare Krishna Mahamantra Ki Jai Jagat Guru Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Nitai Gaur Premanande Hari Hari Bol Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Reading from Srimad-Bhagavatam, Canto 1, the matter of creation, chapter number 2, Divinity and Divine Service, text number 31. Taya Vilasiteshu Yeshu Taya Vilasiteshveshu Taya Vilasiteshveshu Guneshu Gunavan Iva Guneshu Gunavan Iva Guneshu Gunavan Iva Antaha Pravishta Abhati Antah Pravishta Abhati Antah Pravishta Abhati Vijnanena Vijrambhitaha Guneshu Gunavaniva Antah Pravishta Abhati Vijnanena Vijrambhitaha Taya Vilasiteshveshu Guneshu Gunavaniva Antah Pravishta Abhati Vijnanena Vijrambhitaha Taya Vilasiteshveshu Guneshu Gunavaniva Antah Pravishta Abhati Vijnanena Vijrambhitaha taya by them, vilasiteshu, although in the function, eshu, these, guneshu, the modes of material nature, gunavan, affected by the modes, iva, as if, antaha, within, pravishtaha, entered into, abhati, appears to be, vijnanena, by transcendental consciousness, vijrambhitaha, fully enlightened. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada. Translation. After creating the material substance, the Lord, Vasudeva, expands himself and enters into it. And although he is within the material modes of nature and appears to be one of the created beings, he is always fully enlightened in his transcendental position. Kindly repeat. After creating the material substance, the Lord, Vasudeva, expands himself and enters into it. And although he is within the material modes of nature and appears to be one of the created beings, he is fully enlightened. He is always fully enlightened in his transcendental position. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. The living entities are separated parts and parcels of the Lord, and the conditioned living entities who are unfit for the spiritual kingdom are strewn. Paramatma and eternal friend of the living entities, the Lord, by one of his plenary portions, accompanies the living entities to guide them in their material enjoyment and to become witness to all activities. While the living entities enjoy the material conditions, the Lord maintains his transcendental position without being affected by the material atmosphere. In the Vedic literatures, Shruti, it is said that there are two birds in one tree. One of them is eating the fruit of the tree, while the other is witnessing the actions. The witness is the Lord, and the fruit eater is the living entity. The fruit eater, living entity, has forgotten his ideal entity. The fruit eater, living entity, has forgotten his real identity and is overwhelmed in the fruitive activities of the material conditions. But the Lord, Paramatma, is always full in transcendental knowledge. That is the difference between the super soul and the conditioned soul. The conditioned soul, the living entity, is controlled by the laws of nature, while the Paramatma or the super soul is the controller of the material energy. Thus hence the Bhaktivedanta purport. Om Ajnanatimidandhasya Jnananjanashalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Presthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pasyatya Deshatarine Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Mukam karoti vachalam pangum langhayate girim yat kripatamaham vande Shri Gurum Deenataranam. So here a very important point is being made as to the position of the Supreme Lord. The way this material world is created is that when Krishna desired that the creation has to happen, Mahavishnu or Karanodukasai Vishnu immediately to fulfill the desire of Krishna, lies down on the causal ocean, and from his body, from the pores of his body, many, many universes come out. And into each and every universe, Karanodakasai Vishnu further expands himself as Garbhodakasai Vishnu, and he enters into each and every universe as the super soul of that particular universe. And then further, that Garbhodakasai Vishnu, who is the super soul of the universe, because why super soul for the universe is required? After all, it is dead matter. It is required because the planets have to be set into motion. The seasons have to come and go. The sun has to rise and set every day. The moon has to rise and set every day. The sun has to give out heat and light. So many things have to happen within this material universe. Shri Krishna Balaram. And matter on its own is by nature inert. It has no activity. Therefore, in order that the universe can be filled with activity which can enable life to exist, the Lord, Karanodakasai Vishnu, expands himself as Garbhodakasai Vishnu, and he enters as the super soul within each and every atom as well as within each and every universe. Once he enters into the universe, he sets into motion by his presence the activities within the material universe. Then the stars start rotating, the planets start revolving, and all these whatever proper distances are supposed to be maintained between the earth and the sun, etc. All these things are properly brought into effect by the presence of Garbhodakasai Vishnu as the super soul of the universe. And then that alone is not enough. Then further, that Garbhodakasai Vishnu expands himself as Paramatma or Kshirodakasai Vishnu, and he enters into the heart of each and every living entity as well as every atom. Andantarastam Paramanu Chayantarastam Govindamadi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami. Therefore, to enable the living entities to carry out their activities within this material world, the Paramatma enters into the heart of each and every living entity as well as within every atom of the universe, so that all the activities of the universe can go on properly. Atoms can form molecules, molecules can form elements, elements can further go on to form various compounds, etc., and all this kind of stuff. So all this we have studied in chemistry and physics and all that. So the Lord has thus entered into each and every universe, and he has entered into each and every atom. So he is so intricately interwoven within this material world. And when somebody is so intricately woven within this material world, how can he remain unaffected by it? Just like we are all within this material world, and we are all under the influence of the material modes of nature, Satoguna, Rajoguna, Tamoguna. And by the influence of Satoguna, Rajoguna and Tamoguna, we carry out various activities. Because of the influence of the modes, because of the influence of Satoguna, some people become devatas, demigods. Because of the influence of Rajoguna, some of us become asuras. And by the influence of Tamoguna, some of us become lower than that. We become ghosts and such other lower living entities, animals, plants, etc. So the modes of material nature are influencing every kind of activity that we all engage in. Now the same Lord Vishnu is within this material world. But what happens to him? Is he not affected by this material world? Actually, what happens is, because of the influence of the three modes of material nature, we all are engaged in different kinds of activities. Some people who are influenced by the Sattva-guna, they become devatas and they engage in pious activities. They engage in punya karma. And those who become demons, because of the influence of Rajoguna and Tamoguna, they engage in impious activities, sinful activities, papa karma. Now, because of our accruing papa karma and punya karma, we have to enjoy or suffer within this material world. We see some people are enjoying great opulence, and some people are suffering in poverty. Within the same world, forget about this universe, even within this earthly planet, we can see somebody is born as a son of Ambani, or somebody is born as a son of Birla, and he inherits great property and opulence. Just like recently there was one news that the daughter of Ambani, she has been made the chairman of certain group of companies. She did not work hard for it. She did not engage in a great endeavor to work hard and to use her intelligence and to climb the corporate ladder and finally earn a lot of money and all that. She is born into that affluence. And in the same country, India, you will also see there are people who are suffering without even 1 square meal a day. Farmers are committing suicide. There are so many, if you go out in the street, you can find so many homeless people lying on the streets. And they don't even, and they have to beg in the streets for their food. They don't have anything to properly to eat also. So there are people who are enjoying immense opulence, and there are people who are suffering due to great penury, poverty. So both these kind of things we are able to see. Why is it that one person is endowed with so much opulence and another person has to suffer like anything in this world? It is all because of the reactions of their past pious and sinful activities. So when we engage in pious activities, punya karma, the fruit of those activities is very sweet. We take birth in some great aristocratic family, we have great beauty, we have great opulence, we become very famous. Anything that we do, there will be some newspapers coming and taking photographs at us. Like we see, if we walk on the street and no matter what we do, nobody will take notice of us. On the other hand, if you look at somebody like the son of the Bollywood celebrities, Kareena Kapoor and Saif Ali Khan, from the day he is born, every time the newspaper people are running behind that child, trying to take photograph. Oh, Taimur did this today, or Taimur did that today, he vomited today, he had loose motion today. Everything becomes a news. We also have all these things, but anybody reports? Nobody reports. So some people are born with that kind of fame. Some people are born with beauty. Some people are born with opulence. Whereas, so these are all the results, the sweet results, the sweet fruits of our past pious activities. And at the same time, whenever we suffer some disease, whenever we suffer some distress, material distress within this world, we have to understand that it is the result, it is the bitter fruit of our past sinful activities. So constantly, people in this material world are tasting the sweet fruit of their pious activities and the bitter fruit of their distressful, of their impious activities. So now what happens to Lord Vishnu? He has also entered within this material world like us. So is he also subject to the 3 modes of material nature? And because of the modes of material nature, does he also have to suffer like us or sometimes enjoy like us? That is clarified by the Upanishads. The Upanishads state, Dvasaparna sayuja sakhaya samane vrikshe parishashva jate tayor anya pippalam swadyatti anashnan anyo abhichakasiti. So the Upanishads are stating that they are giving a metaphorical example. What is the example they are giving? That Dvasuparna sayuja. There are 2 birds. Suparna means bird. Dvasuparna, there are 2 birds. And sakhaya, sayuja sakhaya, samanam vrikshe parishashva jate. Samane vrikshe, in the same tree, both of them are seated. And both of them are seated on the same tree. What are they doing? But although they are seated on the same tree, both of them have different activities. What are the different activities? One is Tayor Anya Pippalam Swadi Atti. One of them, one of the 2 birds, Pippalam Swadi Atti, he eats the fruits of the tree, which is sometimes sweet, sometimes bitter. And the other, Anashnan Anyo Abhichakasiti. The other, Anashnan, he is not eating the fruits. What is he doing? He is simply abhijakashiti. He is witnessing what the other bird is doing. That's all. So this metaphor is given to explain how the body, our body, is compared to a tree. And the two birds within the tree are the Atma and the Paramatma. I am seated within the tree of this body. And not only am I present within this body, Paramatma is also present. Andantarastham Paramanu Chayantarastham. He is seated there in the heart of every living entity. So Paramatma is there, I am there. These are the two birds being referred to in the Upanishads. And one of them, that is me, the individual soul, I am constantly eating, tasting the sweet and the bitter fruits of the tree of this body, which is the result of my past pious and sinful activities. Whereas Vishnu, Paramatma, he is not tasting the fruits of karma. He is only witnessing what I am doing, waiting for me when I will turn towards him so that he can liberate me with knowledge and take me back to Godhead. Therefore, although we are in this material world, although we are constantly experiencing happiness and distress within this material world, and although Krishna, in Krishna's expansion, Krishna's incarnation, Vishnu is also within this material world, he does not undergo the same kind of influence of the three modes of material nature, engaging in pious and sinful activities, on account of which he has to suffer or enjoy the results of his activities. On the other hand, like it is mentioned here in this verse of the Bhagavatam, Anta pravishta abhati, it appears that he has entered, but at the same time, vijnanena vijrambitaha, he is always fully enlightened in his transcendental position. Because of our entering into this material world and coming under the influence of the three modes of material nature, what has happened? We have become covered with ignorance. But the Supreme Lord is not covered by ignorance. He is vijnanena vijrambitaha. Why is the Supreme Lord not covered by ignorance? Because, as it is stated by Srila Jiva Goswami in the Bhagavata Sandarbha, Srila Jiva Goswami, one of the 6 Goswamis, the direct disciples of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he has written 6 Sandarbhas, Shat Sandarbha, which are philosophical expositions on how Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So he has written Paramatma Sandarbha, Preeti Sandarbha, Bhagavata Sandarbha, etc. Out of that, in the Bhagavata Sandarbha, Srila Jiva Goswami, he quotes the Vishnu Purana, which states, Satvadayo na santishe yatra cha prakrita gunaha sa shuddha sarva shuddebhyaha puman adhyaha prasidatu. So he says that Puman prasidatu, may that Supreme Lord, Puman, in the Vedic literatures, the Supreme Lord, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the Absolute Truth, is referred to as Puman. Puman means the original enjoyer. So that Puman Adhya Prasidatu, may that Supreme Lord be pleased with me. Who is that Supreme Lord? What is the nature of that Supreme Lord? Sattvadayona Santi Ishe. In that Isha, in that Supreme Controller, Sattva Adayahana Santi. The qualities of Sattva, etc. Sattva Adayaha means Sattva, etc. Meaning Sattva, Raja, Tama. So the 3 qualities of Sattva Guna, Rajo Guna and Tamo Guna, na Santi Ishe, they are not present within that Supreme Lord. Yatracha prakrita gunaha, and these gunas, these qualities are prakrita, are material. These gunas of Sattva-guna, Rajoguna and Tamoguna, the modes of goodness, passion and ignorance, they are material qualities, prakrita gunaha. Sa shuddha sarva shuddebhya, but he, the Supreme Lord, is shuddha sarva shuddebhya, he is the Supreme Pure. He is filled with shuddha sattva guna. He is filled with transcendental goodness, not prakrita sattva guna, not material mode of goodness. He is filled with the mode of shuddha sattva. He is filled with the mode of transcendental goodness. And because of being covered by transcendental goodness and not being covered by either sattva guna, rajoguna or tamoguna, What happens? Hladini Sandini Sambit Tvayeka Sarva Samshaya. So, the Lord, the Supreme Lord, is imbued with Hladini, Sandini and Sambit Shaktis. These energies are constituting Krishna's personal form. And what are these Hladini, Sandini, Sambit? Hladini refers to Krishna's pleasure potency. Sandini refers to Krishna's existential potency. Refers to Krishna's knowledge potency. So constantly Krishna is filled with knowledge, eternity and bliss. Whereas the three modes of material nature, Sattoguna and Rajoguna and Tamoguna, they are not filled with bliss, knowledge and eternity. This material world, because it is completely permeated by Sattoguna, Rajoguna and Tamoguna, what do we see in this material world? Nothing is eternal in this material world. Everything is temporary. So, eternity is not there. Sat is not there. And we find that everything in this material world is filled with ignorance. Everybody, even Albert Einstein, if he is born into this world, he has to first go to the school and start studying in the nursery ABCD. He has to start from there only. Nobody is born full of knowledge. So, everything in this material world is filled with ignorance, and knowledge has to be given from outside into each person to be able to make that person knowledgeable. By nature, everybody is full of ignorance. So, there is no sambit here. There is no, it is full of achit and asat, temporary and full of ignorance. And in this material world, so-called happiness is also filled with ignorance. So-called happiness is also filled with distress. Why? So, the Vishnu Purana further says, Hladini Sandini Samvid Tvai Eka Sarva Samstitau Hlada Tapakari Mishra. Hlada, happiness within this material world, Tapakari Mishra, is always mixed with distress. If you want happiness within this material world, you have to struggle so hard to get it, that finally what happiness you get is never proportional to the amount of effort you have put in. So, and if you happen to get some happiness without putting heavy endeavor to get that, what will happen is later on that happiness will create great distress for us. So in this material world, Hlada Tapakari Mishra, this material world, all material happiness is mixed with distress. Whereas Krishna, in the spiritual world, he is filled with Hladini, Sandini, Sambit, Sat, Chit, Ananda. His existence is full of bliss. There is no distress at all in him. And so therefore, Hlada Tapakari Mishra, Tvaino Gunavarjite. The Vishnu Purana is stating that in you, O Supreme Lord, the influence of the three modes of material nature do not exist. And therefore, the kind of bliss or happiness that you experience is not mixed with distress like in this material world. Hlada Tapakari Mishra Tvaino Gunavarjite. In this material world, all happiness is mixed with distress, whereas your bliss, the happiness that you experience, is transcendental, and therefore it is completely unmixed with distress. And so therefore, the Upanishads are stating that the one living entity within the tree, within this body, the jiva, the living entity, the conditioned soul, is eating the fruits of the tree. So, Pippalam, Swadi, Atti. And because of the tasting the fruits of the tree, which are sometimes sweet and sometimes bitter, he is experiencing Hlada Tapakari Mishra. He is experiencing happiness and distress. Whereas the Supreme Lord is not interested in material happiness or distress, because the nature of material happiness is it's always accompanied by distress. So intelligent person will never take pleasure in material happiness, in material sense gratification. And therefore, the Lord is uninterested in material sense gratification, and therefore he is not interested in eating the fruits of the tree. Anyaha Anyaha abhichakashiti. Anyaha anashnan abhichakashiti. The other living entity, which is the Paramatma, he is seated in the heart of the living entity. He is not eating the fruit of the tree. He is witnessing that, oh, this soul, he is eating the sweet and bitter fruits of this tree. He is experiencing happiness and distress within this material world. When will he turn towards me so that I can take him back to Godhead? And therefore, not only is the Supreme Lord filled with Hladini, Sandini, Sambit, and not only is he free from Hlada, Tapakari, Mishra, not only is he freed from the mixture of distress in his happiness, not only is he Shuddvena, Satvena, Sarva Shuddhaya. Sorry, what is that? It is said that Shuddhaha Sarva Shuddhebhyaha. He is the purest of the pure. And like it is said here, Jnanena Vijrambitaha. He is always enlightened in his transcendental position. Not only is he like this, anybody becomes a devotee of Krishna and surrenders to him, he will also become like this. Because we are all small, minute, part and parcel of Krishna. Krishna says in the Bhagavad-gita, Mamaiva amso jivaloke jivabhota sanatanaha. He says, Mamaiva amshaha. We are all amsha of Krishna. So therefore, we also have the ability to experience Hladini, Sandini, Samit like Krishna without Hlada, Tapakara, Mishra, without the mixture of distress within the happiness, and without being influenced by ignorance, without having to live in a nature of temporariness. We can also experience eternity, a life eternal where there is no death, no old age, no disease, and a life which is filled with enlightenment and knowledge, not ignorance, not suffering in ignorance like this in this material world. So this position is available even to us if we simply become devotees of Krishna. So just by surrendering unto the lotus feet of Krishna, if a living entity can overcome, surpass the three modes of material nature and overcome the influence of ignorance and become free from the temporary nature of this material world and experience bliss which is unmixed with distress, then what to speak of that Supreme Lord? So the Lord can never come under the influence of the three modes of material nature, like mistakenly spoken of by the Mayavadis. The Mayavadis, they say that Supreme Lord himself has come under the influence of material modes, which is not possible. Because when the devotees of the Supreme Lord himself, as Krishna says in the Bhagavad-gita, that those who surrender unto him, Maya metam tarantite, they cross over this material influence of this material nature. So if somebody can cross over the modes of material nature simply by surrendering unto Krishna, then what is the position of Krishna? He cannot be under the influence of the three modes of material nature. So that is being amply clarified here, and therefore we should not become bewildered by the Mayavadi commentaries which mislead us into thinking that the Supreme Lord Krishna is also one person like us. He is definitely not like us. He is always enlightened, vijnanena vijrambitaha. He is beyond the three modes of material nature, and all his activities, there is no punya and papa involved. There is no punya and papa involved. Krishna is always engaged in transcendental activities. So the question comes that if Krishna and his activities are beyond the laws of karma, and he is always engaged in activities which are all blissful, then why did Krishna engage in dancing in the midst of the gopis? Why did he engage in Rasa Leela? Why did he have amorous relationships with others' wives? This is a question that comes up. So, is it not a sinful activity? It is a papa karma in this material world to have a relationship outside of marriage is considered a sinful activity, is definitely a sinful activity. So how is Krishna engaged in such activities if he is beyond the influence of modes of material nature? If Krishna is not under the influence of tamoguna, if he is not under ignorance, then why did he have a relationship with others' wives? The fact is that the Supreme Lord, he is not interested in having a relationship with another's wife. The Lord is not interested. If we look at the Krishna's pastimes, when Krishna wanted to bless the wives of the Brahmanas who are engaged in sacrifices, he sent word to them that he was hungry, and all the wives of the Brahmanas came to Krishna bringing loads of different kinds of wonderful palatable dishes to feed Krishna. At that time, after feeding Krishna, they told him, "Oh Krishna, we don't want to go back, we want to be with you only. We don't want to go back to our husbands, we don't want to go back to our houses. You take us with you." What did Krishna do? Krishna said, "No, it is against the law of dharma. You should not do that. You have to go back to your husbands." And Krishna sent them back. So Krishna is not interested in having a relationship with others' wives. Very clearly, when the wives of the Brahmanas came to Krishna, Krishna sent them back. Because he is not interested in having an illicit relationship with somebody else's wife. Then what about the gopis? How do we understand his relationship with the gopis? We have to understand that Krishna is the reservoir of all pleasures. And Krishna desires to experience the rasa of parakiya bhava. Jaya Jayojjvala rasa. What is that? Sarva rasa sara. So, Jaya Jaya Ujjvala rasa, the brightest rasa, Sarva rasa sara, which is the essence of all rasas. Rasa means the mellow of what we experience, the taste of a relationship that we experience. In every relationship, there is a rasa. There is a taste which we experience. So out of all the rasas, out of all the relationships we can experience, the Ujjvala rasa, the brightest rasa, which is the sara, which is the essence, which is the sweetest of all rasas. What is that? Parakiya bhava. Jaha vrajete prachara. So, Krishna wanted to experience parakiya rasa. He did not want to enjoy others' wives. He wanted to experience parakiya rasa. And for that, what happened? The gopis, his expansions of his Ladini Shakti, they took the forms of the gopis and they gave that parakiya rasa to Krishna by creating an environment where certain people would think that they are husbands of these gopis, and the gopis were also in that mood. Oh, we are married to somebody. They were not really married to anybody else. Because why? Because eternally Radharani and the gopis are consorts of Krishna. They cannot be anybody else's wives. They cannot be anybody else's consorts. But because Krishna wanted to experience that parakiya rasa, therefore the gopis and Radharani, who are eternal consorts of Krishna, who are expansions of his Ladini Shakti, they took on the mood, oh, we are married to somebody else. And there were other people also within Vraja who were thinking, oh, these are our wives. So these are all the arrangements of Krishna's Yogamaya. That people are thinking like this. And so therefore, in that mood, constantly the gopis, but that's why the gopis also, even though they were married like that, they thought only Krishna is our husband. Although we are married to somebody else, Krishna is our real husband. That is why when Uddhava also came with the message from Mathura to Dwaraka to Vrindavan, from Mathura. He came from Mathura with his message from Krishna to the gopis. So the Radharani asked him, Arya Putro Aduna Aste. How is Arya Putra? Arya means actually in Sanskrit, a wife, a high-class wife, a person who is from a high-class society. A wife will refer to her husband as Arya. So she said, how is my Arya? How is my husband? So you see, actually the gopis' husband is Krishna. Nobody else can be their husband. But it is a feeling that we are married to somebody else. They think like that. Actually they are not married to anybody else. So why? Because Krishna wanted to experience parakiya rasa. Not that he wanted to enjoy some woman who was somebody else's wife. No. That kind of desire is there in the material world. In this material world, a man may look at a woman who is married to somebody else and he may desire her. And then he tries to establish a relationship with her, and although she is already married, an illicit relationship starts. Why? Because the man desires that wife of somebody else, and the wife and that woman desires the husband of somebody else. So that is material, and that is condemned. That is papa karma. But Krishna never desired somebody else's wife. He desired to enjoy parake rasa. And so therefore, the gopis played the role. That's all. So, like this, when we look at these things, we can understand that Krishna is ever untouched by the papa karma and punya karma. He is untouched by sattva-guna, rajoguna, tamoguna. Sattva-dayaha, all the three modes of material nature, na santishe, they are not present at all within this Supreme Lord. So where is the question of his desiring somebody else's wife? Not possible. So when we understand all this properly, we can see how Krishna is beyond the three modes of material nature, and this is a very, very confidential subject matter. Not everybody can understand this. And therefore, people by and large, they misunderstand the position of Krishna, and it becomes they are unable to reconcile how God can engage in these kind of activities which are sinful. Actually, Krishna is Shuddebhyaha. He is out of all the Sarva Shuddebhyaha Shuddhaha. He is the purest of the pure. No material sinful activity can tinge that Supreme Lord. So that's how we have to understand all these activities of the Supreme Lord, and we have to understand his position and our position. We cannot measure the Supreme Lord's activities in terms of our activities, and Krishna is always beyond all papa karma and punya karma. So we'll stop here. If anybody has any question or comment, we can discuss. Yes.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
Prabhu, in the life of devotee also undergo through the different kind of misery in their life,
yes.
Just like sickness. Other than that, so many miseries will be there in life.
Yeah.
So, how much degree Lord Krishna interfere that devotee is undergoing through that kind of misery? That is also the reaction of his past deeds.
Actually, once we surrender fully to the lotus feet of a spiritual master, once we have accepted a spiritual master, and once we have accepted the spiritual master within our heart, that this is my Guru, I am surrendering my life and soul to him. And then that spiritual master also accepts that yes, this person is my disciple. That process of acceptance may be different. In different cases it will be different. In the case of Dhruva Maharaj, Narada Muni asked him, tried to dissuade him from the path of searching out Vishnu, but Dhruva Maharaj refused to be dissuaded. Then Narada Muni accepted him. Okay, you are my disciple, and he gave him. In the case of Mrigari, Narada Muni accepted Mrigari by asking him to break his bow. That was his initiation ceremony. So, in the case of Prabhupada, he has instituted the system of Ritvik initiation. That is the process he is accepting. So, the process of acceptance may be different. But once a disciple accepts in his heart that this is my spiritual master and I am surrendering my life and soul unto him, and I will follow his instructions without fail. And the spiritual master also sees that yes, this disciple is serious to follow my instructions, and he accepts him as a disciple. Immediately, all his papa karma, all his punya karma, all his karmas are destroyed. The spiritual master takes all his karma. This is the reality. Now what happens, although this is so, still devotees undergo distress. Why? Because we have to understand, why does a devotee come and surrender to the spiritual master? Because he wants to go back to Godhead. He doesn't want to remain in this material world. Now, although in our heart, we have surrendered to Prabhupada with the intention that we want to go back to Godhead, still that desire to go back to Godhead is not very intense. Okay, it has just sprouted in our heart. Some desire is there, it has started taking root in our heart, and we have started practicing. And that is how when we practice the principles of sadhana, sometimes we fall down, sometimes we are not very strict, sometimes we are not able to follow very rigidly. So, today little backache, so let me skip Mangalarti today. So we see the intensity of our desire to go back to God is not so strong, but it is there. That is why we have given up the material world and joined the mission of Prabhupada. Otherwise, why would we do that? So, the desire to go back to God is there. That is why we have surrendered to Prabhupada. Now, much more intense than our desire to go back to God is Krishna's desire to bring us back to Him. Krishna is intensely desiring, when will we come back to the spiritual world? And he's saying, this foolish fellow, I am waiting when this guy will come, and this guy is still wallowing in material nature. So what Krishna says, Krishna becomes desperate. Somehow or the other, I have to expedite this fellow coming back to God. Somehow or the other, I have to increase the speed of his. He's going at 10 km per hour. He can go at 150 km per hour. He can finish the journey in this lifetime, but the way he is going, he will never complete in million lifetimes. So Krishna becomes desperate. Krishna thinks, somehow or the other, somehow or the other, I have to make him Krishna conscious and make him come back to God. So what to do? Krishna will see, everything at my disposal, I have to engage to make him come back. So what Krishna will do? What is there in my hand? Oh, this tool of his past karma is there. Although it is burnt up by Prabhupada, still, all these karmas were there which he should have experienced. So let me give some of it so that this fellow will quickly come back. That is Krishna's desperation. Krishna does not want his devotees to suffer. But when a person becomes desperate, what to do? Just like a father, he wants his child to be well educated. Every father wants that his child should be happiest person in this world. He never wants his child to suffer. But when the child, he goes and does some sinful activity, he goes and steals something, he goes and picks up a fight with someone, he doesn't study, what the father will do? Father will become desperate. This fellow, he is not able to understand. I want him to study, stand on his legs and have a wonderful life. But this guy is not understanding, he is going and running around playing. So father will become desperate. When he becomes desperate, what he will do? Today, I've been tolerating this fellow so many days, but he is not listening. Again and again, I am telling him, sit and study, do your homework, he is not listening. What father will do? When the father becomes desperate, he'll take a stick in his hand. And nicely, he'll give him one in the back, and the kid, oh my God, then the child will understand, better sit and study. So likewise with all of us also, our desire to serve Krishna is not so intense, although it is there. So, but Krishna is so desperate to bring us back. Whenever he sees a little going this way, that way, Krishna will immediately take the stick of some past karma. Something was supposed to act in this fellow's life, nicely give it to us. So what will happen? We will learn, oh my God, Krishna says, Dukhalayam Ashasvatam. What was I trying to do here? So, every distress that comes in a devotee's life is only a tool used by Krishna to make us more serious in our devotional life. That is how we have to understand. So, these are the transcendental activities and relationships of between a devotee and the Supreme Lord. And that is why, whenever a distress comes in a devotee's life, tatte anukampam susamikshamaano bunjana eva atmakritam vipakam. A devotee, what is his reaction? He says, oh my Lord Krishna, thank you for giving this distress to my life. So everybody goes to the Lord and prays, oh my God, why did you give me this distress? Please take it away. Devotee, what is his approach? He says, Krishna, thank you so much, you have given me this distress. Why? Because the devotee understands, Krishna is giving me this distress because he wants to purify me and take me back to God. And very quickly, he wants to enhance the speed of my progress back to God. So that is how we have to understand. Is that okay?
Yes, Prabhu. Thank you, Prabhu.
So we'll stop here. Grantharaj Srimad-Bhagavatam ki jai. Jagat Guru Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Nitai Gaur Premanande Hari Hari Bol.